Let me give you an inverse function question. Here you've got f of x, g of x. Find the inverse of f, find the inverse of g. Set the two to be the same as each other and then solve the equation. So find the inverse of this. Use whichever method you want. There are lots. I'm just going to randomly use my method. Make x a subject. So set it to y. Make x a subject. So add 17 to both sides. Equals x squared, and then square root both sides. Now when you square root, you would get the positive version and the negative version. So what that means is this function here will be a quadratic with an intercept of negative 17. So this is negative 17. The inverse is a reflection along the diagonal, and I'm expecting you to know this. So when you reflect it, it will look something like this. It will look something like this, with this being negative 17 over here in the x direction. When you square root, you get the positive version. So this positive version is actually this strand here. And then the negative version is actually this negative square root strand. This strand here. But then this whole thing collectively is not a function because it fails the vertical line test. Here you've got two points. So what we do is we want to turn it into a function. So we would discard the negative strand. So discard the negative strand, discard the negative strand. So now this is a function. So we can make use of this function. So hang on. So really the actual inverse function is actually square root x, remember you've got to switch these two around, x plus 17, square root of x plus 17. So we discard the negative version. And now let's look at g. So g would be, set it to y, make x a subject, y equals minus 3 equals x. So the inverse function, switch these two around, the inverse function would be x minus 3. So now it's saying set the two to be the same as each other and then solve the equation. So hang on, set the two to be the same as each other. So f inverse of f would be root x plus 17 equals inverse of g, so that would be x minus 3, square both sides, that would then be this thing here, and then multiply this out. This will then give you x squared minus 6x plus 9. Train yourself to be able to multiply this out in your head. X plus 17 here. Take away x from both sides. So that would be x squared minus 7x plus 9, 17 here. And then take away 17 from both sides. So this would be 8 here, and this would be 0. Now solve this. Factorize it. Factorizing this would then be x. Two numbers multiplied together to give you an 8. Well, it could be 8 and a 1. Well, and then you also have to create the negative 7. So to factorize this, it's going to be negative 8 and then plus 1. Okay, so now solving this equation would be x equals positive 8 and x equals negative 1. But looking at this, hang on, looking at this, remember our original function was negative 17 down here, and then the inverse was this thing here, this being negative 17. And then remember, we discard the negative strand. This inverse function is x minus 3, so it looks something like this. Remember, we discard the negative strand here, so really this is the number 8 here, and the negative 1, x being negative 1 here, is this intersection here, but we don't really care about the negative strand. Remember, we discarded that. So this negative 1 here is meaningless. We actually want this one here. So the answer is actually x equals 8, because because our inverse function does not include the negative strand, only the positive one. So we discard this negative thing here, and this is our final answer, x equals 8. Okay.